Alright, hi again guys. This time I assume you can hear me. If you can't, well I guess I
Fingers
guess that's
crossed.
it really. um, we don't have a guest again today. As mentioned in well not earlier, last week's stream, we're starting a whole getting into roleplay segment where we sort of discuss the basics and kind of give tips that we'd give out to other players on how to get into role basically. It's in the title.
And we're gonna solo it.
We're gonna solo it. I mean, if I can find a guest that has some input in towards a certain topic, say like naming, for example, they can pop on. But for now, I'm not actively looking for guests, so it's more if you want to pop in. Uh, we'll pretty much start with why would we roleplay in World of Warcraft? You know, basically welcoming other players to it. World of Warcraft as a game itself tends to offer like a high fantasy setting with multiple different,
It's a bizarre mix. It's very fantasy, but it also has a lot of sort of steampunky kind of elements to it.
yeah.
So it can be a bit of a tricky situation at times, but there's kind of a little bit for everyone, no matter what your taste is. There's a
Th-
corner for you.
there's a lot of different cultures to jump into. If you're looking for like steampunky stuff, there's goblins and gnomes, dwarves as well to an extent. There's also
Yeah.
Balls!
oh, thank you for the subscribe. That kind of just blared in my ears. um,
Welcome back, Vashnu.
welcome back. There is what was I lost my track. Oh yeah, if you're looking for more like clan-like roleplay, there's orcs and trolls
Yeah,
and
more sort of tribally
yeah,
stuff.
more tribal stuff. There is some of that on the alliance side as well with the night elves, but it's like one big tribe in the sense. Um, if you're looking for more like knights, just your everyday knights fighting against those foul demons or whatever, you have human roleplay. Also, but if we dig deeper into human roleplay, which we'll probably do at another time, there's different sectors of them as well. Gilneans, Stormwind. I can't remember where the Scarlets were from, but the Scarlets. You have a lot of different.
Very flexible,
Yeah,
basically, concept, or as a world.
it can variate quite a bit. Uh, I mean, what does the game itself offer in terms of roleplay? With when we're talking here, we're probably going to talk mostly about Argent, Dawn, EU, depending if there's other roleplayers from different realms or regions listening in. Argent Dawn EU tends to be the go-to server for RP. It's pretty much the most active one in Europe servers.
But you could join Shatar, Moonglade,
Yeah,
Earthen Ring, Dark Moon,
Darkmoon Fair,
Double.
and there's another one. What's the other
isn't
one?
it Steamweedle?
Steam Wheedle. There's one more. Begins with D. I believe it's not Dark Moon Fair, but it's something else. I think.
Oh
But they're
god.
all merged, so I honestly don't understand yet how the whole merging thing works. But I know the Moonglade and Shatar and is it Earthen Ring are all
Urban
merged
Ring is merged with
together. I think all the RP realms got merged and all the RP PvP realms got merged. Right? I think that's how it
yeah,
worked.
I believe it did.
Except Argent Dawn. Argent Dawn was the only one that didn't get merged because it's the biggest one.
I'm happy, but I'm also sad because we don't have the extra slots to make more characters with. So you kind of have to still moderate
Oh,
if you wanna.
Vashni's from Shatar too. I originally hailed from Shatar.
I am not originally from an
Many
RP
episodes
server,
ago.
so I can't talk about it. I did. Oh, it's Defias Brotherhood. That's it. I
Defias Brothers. See, I knew there was another one that began with D.
I did dabble into Defias Brotherhood for a bit actually, because this was initially when my friend was like, "Oh, we should get into RP. Maybe we can do RP, PvP, all that stuff." Um, didn't last that long. Just leveled up to 10.
Yeah.
Went back to Miles Realm. Uh, yeah, I dabbled into it for a bit. I believe it's got some active community there as well.
Well, we've a guildie that came from Moonglade not too long ago, and she says there was people on Moonglade back then as well. So there's likely role players there, but I think Argent Dawn's just the bigger one, so you just have higher chances.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're looking for more active roleplay, I personally suggest Argent Dawn to go to.
Yeah, just because you're gonna have more options
You'll
and things like that, just in general. Practicality's sake.
you'll find that the alliance is more active,
There's more
but
people on the Alliance.
more widespread. Whereas the Horde has, I guess you can go about calling it sectors. So there's like guilds to get yourselves involved with. It's better to get into guilds, but obviously if you're a pretty active person who can go around guildless and sort of fit yourselves in anywhere, you
Yeah.
can find roleplay easily enough as well.
A lot of roleplay on a few different like fronts and aspects I have found really depends on who you are and what you're like as a person, and knowing that ahead of time. Like if you're the type of person that, and I mean everybody wants to be the type of person that can just approach people and jump into roleplay and it to be fantastic. I'm sure we all wish we were that person, but and some people realistically just can't do that, and some people can if they try. I mean, it's not easy for anybody because it takes effort and it's putting yourself out there and all that kind of stuff. So it's not easy for anybody by any stretch. But some people find it a lot more manageable than other people. And
Yeah,
you need to know that ahead of time, because if you're not that kind of person, then you're going to need to be in a guild or in an environment where it's easier for you to get into roleplay without having to always be making that effort.
yeah. Um, that being said, when you do get into roleplay, it's best to always start. I mean, if you're completely new to roleplay scenario, it's best to start with something basic that you can work around with. So I mean, your average soldier, or from like a baker or a criminal, I guess, law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
It's best.
Characters can grow.
These sort of things have a easier way of interacting with people. For example, again with criminals, you have a pickpocketing people, for example, or something like that, and gives you RP there. Um, Let me actually look at this list we've got here.
That we never pay attention to these lists until we're halfway through.
Yeah, although I had to. I'm going to be honest, guys, before I continue. I'm sorting out a campaign at the same time, so I have to kind of put that on priority before this, which because I'm accommodating to several players for a story. I when it comes to the recommendation, again, I would recommend Argent Dawn. I mean, I've been here for God, when was Kata released? 2010. So 9 years now on the realm.
Was Cataclysm 9 years ago?
Yeah, I believe it
Oh
was.
my
It was
god.
released in 2010. I didn't initially roleplay. I mean, I think I've explained this in the past. I just came here with a friend because their girlfriend was here, so they moved over. I followed him. Initially just PvP'd, but when I did start getting to roleplay, it was pretty easy. I started in Stormwind actually. I'll explain the story again for those who haven't heard it before. I was kind of like an edgy assassin.
Nice.
I mean, all my concepts at the start were kind of edgy, all in trying to be this really cool person, this really strong, smart, cool person, getting everywhere, without losing. But yeah, I would recommend Argent Dawn. Throughout all the time I've been here, I've never had a moment where when I'm looking for RP, I've never found it hard to look for anything, and not even in a guildless sometimes. I've always found my way around rather easily. If you are
Yeah.
looking for some like guidance to the stories before you get in, there is a new Chronicle volumes that Blizzard have released. I think there's 3 of them so far. I'm not sure if there's going to be a 4th one.
Is there three? I thought there
Yeah,
was two.
there's 3 of them. I've got all 3 of them in front of me actually.
Oh man, I'm missing one.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, Kami makes a good point as well, is that when you're making your very first character, make it something that's gonna work. It's all fine and well if you want to roll a sort of hermit type, really stoic, quiet, reclusive, withdrawn, strongman type. That's fine and well, but you're going to really, really struggle getting into roleplay on that kind of character on a new realm where you don't know anyone and where you're not involved in anything. And all those kind of characters can be great if you already have a circle of friends and you already have stuff going on and you know that you'll get into things with those people and all that kind of stuff, and you have different hooks that you can pull into it. Those kind of characters are fine for that situation where you have the foundations. But if you're just starting fresh, Kami makes a good point saying that, it's a good idea to have a character that is more sociable, more willing to go up to things, more willing to get involved, that's motivated to do things. Because if your character's not motivated to go out and help people or to go out and rob people for their own gain, whatever the motivation is, they have to have something that's going to make them go out and do things, so that you have a reason to get them out there and to get them meeting people and making those connections.
It is quite difficult, for especially for a newer player, to roleplay a more brooding character,
Yeah.
someone who.
I mean, you can role play them, but you may end up role playing them by yourself because nobody knows you, nobody knows, no, you don't have the connections yet to.
I mean, some people find enjoyment in roleplaying by themselves. I mean, I've seen
Exactly. If that's what you want to do, then by all means go for it. But
yeah.
if your aim is to get involved in stuff, those types of characters are going to be harder to do that on, just in general, and even more so when you're new on a realm and you're new in a game and you're new to the whole thing. It's you just I feel like making it needlessly hard on yourself to also make a difficult character.
Yeah. Like I said, by all means, if you feel like roleplaying by yourself and it gets your kicks out for it, why not? Because
Yeah.
I did come across, whilst I think I was leveling an orc before. There was a person role-playing a peon for like an hour or two by themselves. I felt sorry for them, honestly, but they were so dedicated. I also was equally impressed. They did the whole whack at a tree emote and then just fall asleep every now and again.
Jeez. Dedication to the
It
bit.
was, yeah. I believe one of our guests from before, Gizlek as well, has often done campfire roleplay out in the open world. If anyone stopped by, he interacts with them, but normally does that by himself.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's really awesome to do because for the people that happen to chance upon it, if you chance upon random roleplay out in the world, just when you're like doing whatever, herbing, farming, questing, whatever you're doing, if you just happen upon this little campsite where, one or two people are just, hanging out, it's really immersive, really atmosphere building, and just, yeah. So I respect to anyone that goes out and does those kind of things.
yeah, it makes the world feel more alive, even though it happens very, very little, which is unfortunate.
It's drastically unfortunate.
Okay, I'm sorry. My dog is being excitable. If you hear that barking,
That's April.
yeah. Uh, I lost my train of thought because my dog.
Damn it, April.
Alright, let's have a look again.
Brief overview of the story.
Yeah, brief overview, sorry. Right, let's see. Vanilla. Vanilla didn't have much story as far as I was aware. That you had I didn't play in Vanilla, so I might be wrong here.
There's a lot of vanilla. I believe was about
A bit all over the place, if I'm right in saying so. You had
Ragnaros and
Ragnaros.
stuff, the Titans and things. But there's a lot of background to Warcraft because there's the Warcraft games and all that kind of thing. There's a lot of stuff with Arthas and Arthas' father and his father, I believe, and all those kind of things. There's a lot of depth to us to some aspects. This is Blizzard's thing. They can create this really immersive storyline and this really immersive world, and then some parts of it there's just like massive black hole gaps,
See,
like aging
there's
and
a
things like that.
there's a fault in that, yeah, a lot of the times. I mean, obviously you're focusing on such a vast world and providing many different aspects of it moving along or whatever can be
Yeah,
difficult at
you're trying
times.
to create a holistic picture. You sometimes don't have time to focus on every single detail in the format that you've chosen to present your world.
Sometimes things just slip through the through the cracks.
Yeah. So, and in some ways, there's a lot of lore and there's a lot of stuff to dig into and a lot of story, and in other aspects, you kind of have to just
My
uh
my personal recommendation for the story is to
Double.
play the games, Warcraft 2,
yeah
Warcraft 3, sorry, Reigns of Chaos and the Frozen Throne. There's also the books. I mean, some of them might not be as good as others, but they'll still provide some sort of aspect
yeah.
that isn't seen in a game. For example, there was at the beginning of BFA, a lot of people pissed off at apparently Southang showing no resistance to Sylvanas burning the tree
But
down.
there was things in the books
But there
that
was things in the books where he was,
supported it.
yeah, where he like shown resistance towards it, which is something that gets on people's nerves. I've noticed a lot with writing. I say on people's nerves, but mostly Argent because role players, right? I don't think any PV. I don't think the majority of PvPs and PvEs care much for the lore. They just want to play the game.
Yeah, not as much anyway. It was it's not as it does not that it doesn't matter as much to them, but it's not as relevant to their own content, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
WoW Wiki is actually a decent source to look to as well. Although the aging there for uh, races, I think, is a bit iffy. I mean, we still get, for example, apparently trolls can live up to 200 years old, from a recent GM explained, and on there it says they live relatively small lives, like short lives even, which is like what 50-ish apparently. So I don't know which one's right, but go with your
Yeah, I
gut.
thought it was sort of human style aging.
Yeah. And there was also a point when Pandarans were introduced that apparently they could age to like 200-ish as well, more than that. But apparently they also age like humans do.
Hmm.
So
So just yeah, just be careful. Keep it vague if you can.
the best thing when, especially with ages, when it comes to characters, if you're not sure, if you don't feel sure, just put adult or middle-aged or
Yeah.
whatever really.
People don't really need to know the exact number
Age,
of
yeah.
years your character's been alive unless it's specifically relevant to some other point of their story or whatever. Generally, people are just fine as long as you give them the atmosphere that they're going for here. Like, is this an older person or is it a younger person? You know what? Just basically give them what they're looking at, what they're dealing with, so that they can react accordingly.
I think it matters. It doesn't matter as much, but I think if you want to give years, I think it only matter most for night elves and Draenei, where obviously you have some Draenei who escaped with Velen, who are still
Yeah,
around,
yeah,
and then you have the War of the Ancients that happened like 10,000 or so years ago, when
yeah.
some
Well,
night elves were still around.
the age of your character is obviously going to reflect in what they've
Yeah,
seen happen in the world. So bear that in mind as well. Like, you might not have seen specific things. You might only have read about things in history books. Like, if you have an elf, your elf could have been present at all of the wars that have occurred on Azeroth and things like that, whereas your human is probably only ever read about them in history books. So they probably have a much different opinion on them
yeah.
than the characters that are likely to have been there at the time and things like that, which could be interesting stuff as well.
An interesting thing to note actually with aging is as a night elf specifically, you've lived a relatively long time that you've seen like new races being born into the world.
Yeah.
Let's say literally, but they pop up, and you're like, oh, what's this sort of thing? But for example, with humans are relatively like younger, one of the youngest races, I believe, and obviously they evolved from the Vicryl. But yeah, that's something to know as well if you want to note changes in your character's life, where at some one point they started seeing more and more of these humans about, for example.
Because they breed like rabbits.
Those are goblins. Um, God, I should have planned this out further. Let's go with out of character and in character with RP servers.
Do some terms, some terminology,
Yeah,
and
terminology.
some general etiquette.
Out of character, OOC, it pretty much means what it is. If someone says they're OOC, That just means that they're not RPing currently.
It's usually highlighted by double brackets for whatever. I have literally no idea where that came from or who decided that, but that's how it is.
It is, yeah. It's usually done so in add-ons like TRP, MRP, XRP. These are
Yeah.
add-ons that are used to create your character's profiles and give more
If
of
you're
a
wanting to speak out of character when you're in the middle of a role play, it's usually best to either use party chat if it's a group of people
yeah,
or to whisper the person that you're trying to speak to. It's advisable not to put out of character stuff in /e or /say if you can at all help it. Some people do, but I think some people frown on it.
yeah. It's preferable to because it shatters people's immersions at
Immersion,
times,
yeah.
and people don't tend to like that happening. So I mean, if you can avoid that, just whisper someone if you don't
Yeah.
know something or whatever really. IC obviously means the opposite of that, which is in character. RP is obviously roleplay. There aren't very much terminologies, are there?
Metagaming,
Oh yeah,
power emoting,
metagaming.
all
Metagaming
that
is when
good stuff.
someone takes, let's say for example, you have your history of your character in your TRP, and somehow this character knows it without you not even knowing this
Yeah.
character,
If
whatever.
you just walk up to another character that you've never met before and greet them by name,
Yeah,
you're metagaming because they don't actually have their name floating above their head.
yeah,
That's just a game mechanic. So you don't know their name until they tell you their name. And anything else. It's basically knowing things that your character has no ability to know,
yeah.
using your own knowledge
Although
out of character
saying that
to your advantage in character.
it's more to do with other players' characters. You can still have knowledge of what's going on lore-wise if you want to, if your character was there or whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, if your character was there and was seen and all that kind of stuff, but it's generally means if you're it's using knowledge your character has no access to. So if your character was at something and was there and saw it and whatever else, then they have access to that knowledge in
Yeah,
character. But if they did not witness something happening and you were told about it out of character by your friend who was there, then your character does not know about that.
yeah. God emoting. That's when you force something upon another player, basically.
It's when
So
you play God.
we've spoke about in the past about considering what the other player might prefer or consequences, all that stuff. Obviously, you can't do most of these things without communicating out of character sometimes, and
Yeah.
some players refuse to do that. And for example, let's say this person hates this other person, they run at you, stab you, kill you, like just emote that right away, saying that your character's dead. Obviously, they can't really decide that for you since
Yeah.
it's your character. But
You do not have to have your character lie down and play dead
yeah,
under any circumstances.
and you shouldn't do that either way because it's inconsiderate of the what the other player might want. Obviously, you can whisper them and meet halfway maybe. If they don't want it, you can always just move along and RP with someone else because again, it's a vast world, and you have other players to interact with.
So yeah, metagaming's basically just when you decide the outcome of your actions and do not let your roleplay partner have any say in what happens to their character. So you don't let them dodge, you don't let them, you know, um,
You're being
counter,
godlike,
you don't let
basically.
them, yeah, being godlike, and it's you are deciding that is you deciding how good their character is instead of them. And if their character is has trained for 10 years in martial arts and you suddenly decide that your 15-year-old assassin ninja can kick their ass, that completely destroys their character concept and it's really disrespectful.
Yeah. Bubble RP. Thank you, Vashnu, because my mind's pretty blank. I'm still tired. Bubble RP. It's pretty much what it is. These guilds or these players are inserting themselves in this bubble and sort of ignoring the world around them. And this can often be done with people who are doing events where it's meant to be situated elsewhere, but they're using an area to represent that area, basically. So they enclose themselves around this bubble. Other players are not there for them. They don't exist. Whatever. That's what you consider bubble roleplay, basically.
See, this is the thing, right? That makes sense to a degree. Like if you were, say, for example, we had an event that was on Winters. We did this actually. We had a
Yeah,
Wintersville party, but because everyone was obviously IRL at Christmas, we didn't have it on Wintersville. It was afterwards. So technically it would have counted for that.
yeah,
But my understanding of bubble RP in the way that you'd hear it on the forums, in the way that
in
people
the bad
complain
sense.
about it,
Yeah,
is that people think that it's when a guild only role plays within their guild and
it's the
just
same thing,
doesn't let
really.
any outside things affect that or come into that, or doesn't role play outside of that select group of people.
Yeah. No, it's definitely the same thing with that. This is the bad when bubble RP is. I guess it's not bad. It can be bad sometimes, basically.
Like everything, including retconning, which I
It
assume we'll
depends
talk
on
about next,
the
it depends on your use and abuse of the.
yeah. It depends on the context of it, basically. What I mentioned is fine, basically, because obviously what you want in a certain zone is not always there. Maybe you want to
Yeah.
RP in a big mansion. You have guild names for that, but maybe that mansion is placed somewhere in Elwyn, for example.
Yeah.
But when there are in terms where guilds are consistently just role playing with each other and choose to not acknowledge outside players, basically.
Yeah, there is one or two guilds that will literally only roleplay with you if you're in their guild,
Yeah,
which is really unfortunate.
it's unfortunate. It's how players prefer it. It's not really. I don't think it's healthy
Yeah,
to help a community grow and interact with each other. But if it's preferred, it's preferred at the end of the day.
exactly. This is the thing, like you need to work out what it is you're looking to get out of things and look for something that suits that.
Yeah, there is also retconning and something that Blizzard does as well.
Listen, everybody needs a good retcon every now and again.
Okay, the only good retcon I can call off the top of my head is Medan.
Hang on, I have a blog post all about retconning, so I'm going to pull up a link in a sec. But
Uh,
yeah, it's one of those things that I think can be used if it's used carefully and considerately, like most things. Um, if you want to change something about your character's background that nobody else even knows about, but that makes more sense for you once you've started playing and you've got into the character, there's no real reason why you can't do that.
it can retconning to also put it in simple terms as well. Let's go back to metagaming. Say you called out someone's name by accident, you don't know them. You can always whisper them, say, pretend that never happened, basically, and just greet over again. You're
Yeah.
pretty
Or
much
if you're role
retconning it.
playing with a good friend of yours and it's on a night where you're not feeling your best, you end up role playing your character and you're not happy with how they acted, you don't feel like you did them justice, and you know it was because that you were having a hard time IRL, and you speak to your friend and you say, listen, I don't think I did my character justice that night. Would it be all right if we just forget they had a drink that night and carry on? Because it doesn't really, if it doesn't really change either of their outlooks, your friend would probably likely to say, yeah, it's fine, no
Yeah.
problem.
So essentially, retconning is forgetting something, just scrapping
However,
something that happened in the past.
however,
You
there
can tell
is
us a
bad
bad one. Go
retconning.
on.
There is bad retconning where you retcon something that just completely shatters everything around you. Like Theo, my character, it runs a tavern, and it very specifically, because we're a criminal guild, we have an 18 plus age policy, just because we deal with things like drugs and addiction and stuff like that. And as a parent, I'm not cool with having minors, into those kind of like potentially very dark storylines and that kind of stuff. But Theo, as an employer, obviously trying to keep his business on the up and up, um, only employs adults. End of story. Like you have to be, and I don't get into numbers, but you have to be an adult elf, obviously, because you can't employ minors. It's against the law. That would bring down unwanted heat, etc., etc. You get the idea.
Yeah.
We've had some people over the years who applied with their adult elves and then later decided that their elf was not of an adult age. And I'm like, whoosh. Now my character looks like he's doing dodgy shit when he very specifically does not for this one particular thing. And that then makes him seem less capable.
Yeah. No, that's definitely. I wouldn't call that bad retconning. That's fine to retcon. Although, just going on that small bit, it's pretty funny imagining Theo employing a bunch of kids and having them pickpocket other
Oh,
people.
he does it. He has kids on his payroll, but they're not on the official
Yeah, yeah.
tavern payroll. Because he'd have, I don't know, some kind of authority system, I imagine, down breathing down his
I,
neck. Somebody should roleplay like the Blood Elven IRS. Please. That'd be great.
I'm too busy role playing a klepto at the moment.
But yeah, like if you retcon and you suddenly like if you're in a I don't know, if you're in a relationship with someone and you suddenly like change your character's age or change their sexual orientation or something like that, it can completely shake things up
Yeah,
because that is relevant and important and changes things for the other characters that are involved. And if you're going to do that, you need to get the permission and the clearance from the other characters that that's going to affect,
it's not
because it's
fair
kind of as
to.
much their decision as it is yours because it affects their character. It
Yeah,
changes their character as much as it changes yours.
yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking. Sorry, someone just mentioned in the chat. Someone needs to RP similar to Fagin and the urchins from Oliver Twist.
Fagin and the urchins. Oh, yes. Yes.
And that's what I was imagining with also where I'm going to speak briefly of a different game for a moment. Assassin's Creed Syndicate, where you can have a bunch of urchins just pickpocket people for you whilst you stand aside and watch, which is
If they
pretty
don't
funny.
break into song, though,
Yeah.
I mean, why bother? I would be so down with that. That would be incredible.
God, it'd be pretty funny.
We have a couple of street urchiny types in ours. There's a gang of kids in our guild, or like younger characters in our guild as well, and they get up to all kinds of just nonsense. They make the rest of the characters roll their eyes, and it's hilarious. We don't have a Fagin though. Oh man, sorely missing.
Yeah. Sorry, I just flew into a mountain there. I think we've covered most of the RP terminologies. Are we missing any?
Are we missing anything? Retconning, metagaming, power emoting, out of character, in character.
I guess RP PvE and RP PvP is one. So RP PvP is pretty much roleplay with PvP in it, PvP being player versus player. It insinuates that you'll be engaging in actual, combat with other players that has your health dropping and all that stuff. RPPV tends to have more story elements to it. So again, going back to events, which we'll explain further down the line, but events, campaigns, all that stuff. I think that's it for RP terminologies.
I have a slightly more extensive list on this getting started in roleplay blog post, which you can check out if you would like. There's ERP, QQ, OP, Trolls, Bad RP, and Loller. I included in there if you want to go into any of those.
I mean, they are technically terms as well. Loller is essentially it's a troll, basically, someone who intentionally acts out in a with memes or riding a mammoth on top of you, just trying to be as irritating
out
as
of
possible.
character,
Yeah,
in character, intentionally.
yeah. And then obviously Trolls is more acting out of character like that, basically.
Yeah, they're deliberately trying to get in the, to mess up your roleplay,
Yeah.
to be as obstructive as they can.
Bad RP is when someone basically perceives your roleplay as being something law-breaking, something that goes against what the race represents, or something that doesn't quite fit into the World of Warcraft, basically.
Yeah.
Power emoting is technically God emoting, that's it. ERP is erotic roleplay.
It's the secular version.
Erotic roleplay is something that is frowned down upon on servers, because obviously it's a 12 plus game. I can't remember if they upped the age rating to 16 for BFA, probably not. But either way, it's something that shouldn't be done in the game, because obviously you might have miners lurking about, and obviously if you see
Yeah.
this emote about bountiful bosoms and all that stuff, it's not really something they should be reading, right?
If it's in a public channel, assume a 10-year-old is reading it.
Yeah, and you should report that, definitely. Any more from his special list Meraki has provided? QQ is pretty much just a complaint. If you look at the imagery of the Q, it's two eyes with tears underneath it. Otherwise, that's it for the terminologies. We can cover a bit more of the other races as well. You have the Draenei, who are aliens. I guess orcs are also aliens when it comes to Azeroth.
Space gypsies.
Space gypsies. They are a race that values Naru a lot. These beings of the light.
Kind of like deities to them.
Yeah, I can't explain it fully. I'm probably gonna have to have someone to come in and talk more about Draenei personally, but they're quite a religious race, basically. Ones that have escaped that.
Doesn't Vashni play Draenei?
Vashni does play Draenei, although I don't know if Vashni would be up to talk about Draenei in any sense. I've pretty much explained them. There's pretty much space gypsies. They're pretty much space gypsies with a religious sense to them.
Destroyed by Sargeras, I believe.
Space Satan.
Space Satan. So they all piled into their spaceship and left, and their spaceship crashed in good old Exodar.
Before that, their spaceship has, also to consider this, their spaceship has been through many other worlds as well, which they've been chased onto, and it's obviously they had to escape again.
Space Satan's pretty persistent.
Space. Can we just rename him to Space Satan?
That's what he's called now. But yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the gist of the Draenei and how they ended up on Azeroth. It wasn't that long ago that they ended up here, was it? They're a very long-lived race, so don't get it mixed up. They live a long time, but they've only been on Azeroth for like 13 years.
Is it 13 years? Didn't the Darkport open 30 years, right? And oh no, I'm thinking of this wrong. Sorry.
Oh yeah, because there's longer in game than there is in real life.
It depends, because the Legion was 1 year.
Sometimes, but not always.
They've been here very few.
GG Blizzard.
They've been here for very few years, not that much, but
Yeah.
they've integrated themselves with the Alliance.
Relatively, they haven't been here very long, but they are very long-lived.
Yeah, there's the humans. When you create the human, you're creating this one from out of game perspective tends to be one from Stormwind.
Although technically there was like 7 kingdoms of humans, I believe.
Dalaran.
In the olden days before everything got messed up.
Yeah, there were 7 kingdoms. Dalaran, Lordaeron, Menethil, Stormwind,
Kulturas,
Gunneus, isn't it? No, that Gunneus was with Kulturas beforehand.
Lordaeron.
I can't remember them off the
I
top
don't
of
think
my head.
Gunneus was with Kulturas. I think it was a separate one.
No, I think Gunneans are separatists from Kulturas, if I remember correctly. I know Marcus knows this more because he roleplays a Worgen. And I think he's listening in, or probably pretending to listen in.
Pretending to listen in.
But
No,
essentially,
just a pretender.
humans can be they're quite adaptive when it comes to storylines. You have your paladin, which again is like religious.
They're quite adaptive as a race as well.
Yeah, you can pretty much RP yourself in a sense in the game if you wanted to. Thank you, Lordaeron, Dalaran, Kulturas, Gilneans, Alterac,
Kulturas and Gilneas were separate.
Stormguard, Stormwind. I'm definitely sure that Gilneans are from Kulturas though, like to begin
Maybe
with.
they separated before the 7 kingdoms became a thing.
You have your dwarfs. You have 3 clans. Is it 3 clans? Well, 3 main clans. There's other
Dark
types
Iron,
of dwarfs.
Wildhammer, and
Bronze.
Bronze.
Bronze hammer? Is it bronze hammer? I think no. Is it bronze hammer or bronze bits? Something like that. Sorry, guys.
I would just like to point out at this point that Fuse is meant to be the resident alliance specialist, so
You say that,
that's
but I've only
obvious.
been role-playing Alliance for like a year, and it's Night
More
Elves
than
mostly.
me.
I was Horde beforehand. And you should know this, because I bullied you on one of my goblins.
You did.
Yep.
That's why
Um,
we kicked you out.
there is Pandaren as well, which are they're from Azeroth, but they've been relatively
They've
new
been hiding.
introduced.
They
Yeah,
saw the rest of us fuck everything up so much that they're just like, nah, fam. You do you. We're gonna hide.
yeah, pretty much that. The,
I should do one line lore for every
hon-
race.
honestly, if we're ever going to talk about Pandaren, I don't think it's going to be that long, because since Pandaria, they haven't had much more advancement story-wise.
That's pretty much what they did, and now they've stopped again.
Yeah, this is the problem with again returning back to storytelling. When you have
Hold your
a
merge
massive
still
world,
there. It's the other way around.
I knew it was something like that. See, I was right. um, when you have such a vast world, it can be quite difficult keeping track of these different races. Often it annoys players that for some reason before Legion Velen just sat in his Exodar just enjoying the scenery, for example.
Yeah.
It
But I
was
mean, listen, he's been running from Space Satan for like how many thousands of years? He deserved a break, right? Although I would like to point out that he is the world's worst prophet. He's such a bad prophet.
let's be fair, even Zor makes it clear. You can't predict every future, but you have to prepare for the ones you haven't predicted.
Um, it's the same on Horde side. To be fair, there's the race trolls, but there's about I don't know how many different
Dark Spear, Zandalari, uh,
Armani,
Sand Fury,
Gurabashi.
Gurabashi, Dark
What
Trolls,
was the ones from the Hinterlands? Raven Tusk.
Reventusk, Blood Scalp. There's a lot of trolls.
There's a lot of trolls. There's just as many trolls
Here's
as
something
there's
to note
humans.
with trolls. I believe are the one of the oldest races on Azeroth,
Yeah, yeah. The elves came from the trolls, so the trolls. I
and
believe in the dwarves.
I believe Dark Trolls are what elves evolved from, which is why there's very little Dark Trolls around now, lore-wise. I think there's only one in Zandalar somewhere. Um,
But yeah, there's a lot of different subsects. So if you're looking at races, just remember to pick up WoW Wiki and take a look at the different kind of clans and sects and factions and things that those general races can divide into, because that can give you a lot of ideas and stuff for character concepts and story as well.
it's important to get at least somewhat of a basic idea of what you're
Yeah,
planning to
because you'll
RP.
know then what part of the world you came from. Like speaking of trolls, some of them were forest trolls, some of them were jungle trolls. And it's a
Yeah.
whole different thing.
Uh, just finishing off Alliance firstly. We've spoke about humans, dwarves, night elves are they're your like Amazonians basically. They only recently have they been represented as a more savage forest elves sort of thing. Otherwise, prior to that, not as savage as they're meant to be. They're quite like all about nature, praising Elune. Elune meant to be one of the one of the older deities as well, lore-wise, as far as I'm aware. But she's been kept a mystery so far, so we don't know much or anything about her. Just that the Night Elves look up to her basically, and she's meant to be. She's also referred to as like Mother Moon, for example.
Yeah,
Uh,
and some of the deities cross races, like the Naru pop up again in Blood Elf. Blood Elves did not treat them as well
yeah.
or as reverently as the Draenei did. Elune, I believe, is maybe gets a new name. She pop up in Tor and stuff.
No, I believe that's meant to be like the sun version of it. I think the Earth Mother, Anshi. Her,
Okay.
the name is Anshi. I'm not sure.
Also,
I won't 100% say that's right, but I think it's meant to be separate.
Troll Loa are the best thing ever.
Uh, on top of that, that does cross as well. I think at least there's the Wild Gods for night elves, which are technically can be seen as lowers as well, because there's Ursok, there's I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. For example, Ursok gives boons to druids who technically use these like big bear forms.
Yeah.
Lowers technically do the same for trolls. Trolls worship these lowers, and the lowers in return grant them some sort of power situated around them.
So
So
when you're rolling your character, take a look at the different kind of cultural aspects that are relevant to that race, or to whatever your character's likely to have seen, where they grew up and what they did and what that's going to mean to them, because a lot of their concept could be formed in their like or dislike of that as well.
yeah, a fun thing about lowers is that because there's so many of them, you can make up one as well. Like
Oh yeah, you can make up lowers and nobody's going to know any different.
lowers, for example, it doesn't even have to be. I think
There's quite a long list.
my theory here is something becomes a lower, and I think this is actually how it goes. Something becomes a lower when they're worshipped by a troll or tribe so much enough that it just grows in power, basically. So I think my theory with Vol'jin at the moment is that he is a lower.
I hope I helped. Fortune's my baby.
Yeah,
Bring back Vol'jin.
that's the theory at the moment for me, at least. I might be wrong, but if no one knows what's going on with him, even Bomswandi is like you've become something more, whatever. Maybe he's a lower. Who knows? Gnomes, they're your technological race. You're short, good with spanners races. I say good with spanners, but they also come with stuff. For example, Gnomeregun, where their whole cities are radiated, and some gnomes that were left behind have become mutated, like they're
Yeah.
leprous, basically.
So yeah, to sum a lot of that up, I think is when you're making your first character, pick your race that you fancy getting into, and read a little bit about that race, a bit about their historical events, ones your character might have seen and ones your character might have just heard of, and how that's going to affect them, and their cultural aspects. So historical things, cultural things.
Yeah.
And just try and think about where you want your character to stand. And I think just doing that will give you a good foundation of what they're like.
We'll definitely dive into more of these races. There are prior streams that I've done
Yeah.
with Meraki and done without Meraki, I believe.
There's no way we could do all the races
No, not
properly
into
in a
full
single
detail.
stream.
I do want to do Orcs again someday because they're one of my favourites to talk about. Might get Rogmasher in for it, who knows. I mean, that's enough for today, I believe. For getting into basics.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah. Any questions? Anything you want me to add on top of what's been said? That's good. Meanwhile, if there's anything being asked, I'll just say that follow me on Twitch, subscribe on YouTube. There is the links below for Discord. I also have a Patreon that's optional if you want to support me. There's nothing hidden behind a paywall or anything. Believe I've covered all of it. Let me actually scroll down. Yeah, just Twitter. There's also Twitter down there if you want to follow me on that, but I tend to post random stuff, really. Yeah, you joined us late, Simon, okay? This is your fault, not ours, and
we didn't change the starting time.
we didn't change the starting time. I can't believe you've done this to me. Seems there's no questions either way. Next time I should be. Let me actually check. No.
If you do think of any questions between now and then, I think you're aiming for this to be like a little series of like getting into roleplay type guide things.
Yeah.
If you think of anything that would be useful to you in more detail or more depth down the line, drop it in the Discord and we will absolutely get it in there.
Yeah. I might be a bit sloppy again next week though, because I've been flying about the areas I'm running a campaign in at the moment, and I'm sort of plotting the storyline as I go. I tend to improvise when it comes to storylines because I want it to be in the hand of the players, basically. So for now, there's no idea where this compass is going to end up in.
Spoilers, my pirates are going to try and steal it from whoever has it or gets it.
Yeah, so is everyone else probably. And then you go on, and my angry watchers like just destroy it.
Yep.
Anyway, yeah, you have a question? Why do I hate you? I mean, you're just a hateable guy.
Or Simon.
No, I'm joking. I love you, Simon. Alright, thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thank you guys. I'll see you next week.
Yep, next week.